might have been in like Rhodes Furniture Store. My mom, we were trying to get some furniture, and like the lady just didn't want to help my mom because she's like, I don't understand you. I can't understand what you're saying. You know? She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then my dad, I don't know what he was doing. I think he was talking to some other guy. That they both came over, and my dad, because he's in the military, he was already used to speaking better rather than just speaking regular. You know what I mean?
Right. So he'd already put it in his back pocket.
Yeah, he already put it in his pocket. There's a time and there's a place, you know?
Right. So do you go back?
Honestly, I have not been back since I left. My mother hasn't been back. My stepfather, he's been back. And like my cousins and my aunts, they've been back. I don't, me personally, I don't really have a desire to go back, and people might think that it's because I was so young when I left.
Mm-hmm.
But my Jamaica isn't white sandy beaches and, you know, resorts. My Jamaica is tin huts and people walking around with no shoes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So one day I will go back,
mm-hmm.
but I'm not exactly in a rush to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can
because
understand.
it's sad. It's really sad.
But it gives you an appreciation for where you are now.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember just speaking with my mother, and when she was growing up, she would say that they would wash their clothes in the river,
mm-hmm.
and you know, and they were. It's not a rich country, but they were closer to the really poor than the really rich.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, there'd be times when they would go to school and they wouldn't have shoes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they would get, and then even there they would get picked on. And my mom, like, she would fight because they were like the bottom. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Because of that kind of stuff, it makes me not. I'm not really excited to go back. One day I will, but probably won't be anytime soon.
Well, what in your culture now do you think you brought from that country? What traditions do y'all celebrate? What beliefs do you have?
Honestly, we have basically all the same beliefs that Americans have. You know, we do Christmas, we do all of that stuff. I'm trying to think, what is something different that we do? We eat differently. Everything we eat is heavily seasoned. It's not necessarily hot, but it's pretty spicy. And it's funny. I remember being in school when I first started, and you go through the lunch line,
mm-hmm.
and you get your lunch or whatever, and they ask you, what do you want? And do you want a pear? And being Jamaican, a pear isn't a pear to us because pears don't grow there. To us, a pear is an avocado.
Oh.
So it was like, I was like, no, I don't want that. And it was killing me to watch these kids just bite it. And I'm like, they're just eating the skin. Like, who does that, you know? But as I got a little bit older, like, and I told my mom, and I was like, they're eating the pear, they're biting, they just bit it. And I was, And she was like, no, it's a pear. I was, oh, okay, now I get it. Yeah, there were a lot of times like that. One thing, I don't even know if you can really talk about this here.
Talk about it.
Nah, we'll save it for another time. But a lot of things were different. Like, even for instance, when Mom had me, she told me that family members, if you're not being seen
mm-hmm.
in the hospital,
mm-hmm.
you're really not allowed in the hospital. So you have CMC, and there's just like a parking lot, and there's people standing outside, camped out with loved ones in the hospital.
Because they're not allowed in.
Mm-mm. So when my mom went into labor with me, Grandma took her to the doors of the hospital, and my mom went in, and she said that they put you in a room, and she labored by herself until it was time. So a nurse would come check on her, make sure she wasn't dead, and she just went through it. And then when it was time to push, the doctor and the nurse came in, and I came out. And then someone goes outside and tells Grandma that you have a grandson.
Andre is here.
Yeah, pretty much.
In our days of family center care, that's like the opposite end of
The
the spectrum.
complete opposite. Yes, yes. I mean, can you imagine going into labor and there's you're just in the room by yourself.
So the other night we were laughing about like the religions in your in Jamaica, and we were laughing about voodoo. Tell me about voodoo and what your family believes about it and why they believe what they believe.
I think they don't call it voodoo; they call it obia. And I mean, really, there's no difference between regular voodoo with the witch doctors and people with the dolls. It's all, I guess, all that stuff is the same. You can call it what you want to, but it's all the same. It's just, they call it something different. Cannot remember what you call it. It's not like a witch doctor or anything like that. I cannot remember what they're called though, off the top of my head. But I know I remember my mom telling me that there is like a Day of the Dead. I don't know if it's Halloween, like the Hispanic culture, but there is like a Day of the Dead there.
Where you celebrate the dead or you fear the dead?
You celebrate it, but I mean, to me, that sounds pretty frightening.
True, but
they celebrate. You're celebrating all your loved ones that have passed. It's a celebration, and even if for a funeral for us, it's not a sad thing. It's not. We're rejoicing that they're where we want to go.
Right.
You know, that's where we all want to end up eventually, because they have no worries. You know.
Nope, that's true. So, you know, you're talking about the prejudice you felt when you were a kid with your accent. Do you feel like the prejudice you suffer for being a black man are different, the same, worse, better from being a Jamaican?
I would think that it's worse because, you know, there's a certain prejudice for being a black man, and then it's almost as if you're from another country, like if you're African or if you're Jamaican or anything like that, not only are you vilified sometimes, you're stupid on top of it. You know what I'm saying? Like we're uneducated because we don't sound like everyone else. But that doesn't make me not smart. I mean, to be honest, I might be a little bit smart because this is all the culture and the way things are taught is new to me. So I would try harder than someone that their parents, this is how you grew up. You know what I mean? Your parents already know these things. I would try harder because my parents don't know this and they can't teach me this. So I need to pay attention in school. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you think you're double whammy?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. Because I think people really do. And I mean, we all do it, but I think people really do try, they judge a book by the cover. You know? And like I said, that's pretty much the main reason why I put it away. I put my accent away.
Put it away.
Yeah. It only comes out when like I said, I'm excited.